Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 247 of Humanity Rising. Today, we want to contemplate the issue of peace. This is urgent in our world today. As we speak in the Middle East, for example, Israeli airplanes are pounding bombs down on Gaza. Hamas is shooting rockets into Israel, and the entire region is on alert for the possibility of escalating conflict. Just a few weeks ago, there was another flashpoint in the Ukraine as the United States and NATO continue to expand eastward into the Ukraine, and Russian forces were massed on the Ukrainian border. In Myanmar, there's been conflicts of a different nature through a military coup that saw scores and then hundreds of people killed point blank in the streets. COVID, the pandemic, has shattered our world and caused discontinuities in our economy, discontinuities in our social interactivity. And so I would say, as we open up today, the world is in turmoil as influences from the outside penetrate our psyches, the very cells of our bodies. And at the same time, how we respond, our internal fortitude can also reverberate from the inside out and have effects on the external world. So the issue of peace, the multidimensionality of peace, the relationship between the external and internal worlds as we navigate through an increasingly hyper-complex world are urgently pressing down upon us and require our attention. We always start these conversations at Humanity Rising by just taking a moment and centering ourselves in our bodies. In the midst of all this chaos, let us take a few deep breaths and let us center our attention for just a minute or two on our hearts. Listen to the heartbeat in a spirit of gratitude and deep thanksgiving that we're all alive at this extraordinary moment in the human journey. Thank you, everyone. And now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude for each and every one of you that is joining our session today, I want to begin with just a word of thanks for the group of people who have been with Humanity Rising from the very beginning. The Chat Action Group, as it came to be called, Stan Pokros and others who began to organize and develop a number of dimensions of Humanity Rising, including the after-session chat. And then what began to emerge last fall was a peace action lab. As we began to contemplate the unfolding of world events, there was a natural impulse to concentrate a series of sessions on the multidimensionality and the proactivity of the meaning of peace in our day. Kurt Kruger, Leslie Southwick Trask, and others began to take leadership, and we've now developed a peace lab that once a month is bringing to Humanity Rising one of the fractals that we should consider about the nature of peace in our time. So it's with deep gratitude and very warm love for all of you who are so deeply involved in taking such daily interest in Humanity Rising and helping us develop our pathway as we continue to morph day by day as we move into the future, to provide this service of just an open space so that people from all over the world, now in over 130 countries, tens of thousands of people every day, experiencing world unity through simply honoring each other in a spirit of peace, a spirit of love, and a spirit of reverence for the larger ecology. So I want to now turn the program over to Leslie, who has a very, very special day today in honor of her father. Leslie.
Thanks, Jim. Well, I want to thank you very much for giving me this indulgence for just a few minutes to say happy birthday to my dad, who is turning 100 today. And so when we've discovered that the Peace Lab was going to be on May 13th, I went, oh my gosh, that's Papa's birthday. That is amazing. So I just want to say a few thoughts, because turning 100 is, I think, still a pretty big deal in this. I know we're all shooting for 150 or immortality, but as Bruce will tell us, cells die, cells reborn, it's going to happen. But he's 100. And I want to comment that this weekend, I was sitting with him in our standard FaceTime, and he was saying to me, well, my love, in 4 days, there's going to be an event. It's not going to happen to me. I'm going to cause it to happen. And that is my birthday. And I thought, wow, Dad, here you are at 100, and you recognize exactly what Bruce is going to be talking about today around causing our reality. And he said, but it all is colored by the nature of your beliefs, which, of course, if you believe in universal God, that's a whole different story. Now, that is a very deep conversation, and I don't have time for it. I need to get ready for tomorrow. And I thought, I'm having this conversation with my papa, and I just want to show a couple of things so you know the man that I'm speaking about. I want to just show the brilliance of this man, because my dad, when he was born in 1921, was a miracle child, because he was born to a mom who was in her 30s when she had him. So you can imagine in 1921, having a child in your 30s would be kind of like almost in your 50s in today's biology and sociological view. So he's the guy standing on the right with his mom, and his brother is sitting on the floor. And this is him during our FaceTime. And so there he is in 1927, and then there in 1921. But the one thing I want to comment is my dad was a revolutionary. He, you know, when you have a dad that's an actuary, try to go to school and people say, what does your dad do? No, he's not a policeman. No, he's not a doctor. Hillary, my twin sister, would tell the teacher that she had an actress for a father. So the teacher was always intrigued to see who was going to show up for the home and school meeting. But my dad was a revolutionary, and he is the architect of many pension plans, but most significantly, and I'll share this photo of him, most significantly in the 60s, he introduced the concept of benefits, the whole notion of benefits. And what that means is that he was the mathematician behind the scenes that was costing out what would it cost for, in the first iteration, our major railroads to offer more than a pension, to offer healthcare. He was the mapper of Medicare, the medical public health in Quebec. He saw, and the line there is that, is this not a matter of social evolution, is his work. And he said that in the 60s, Jim. So he was avant-garde. He was, when he was working with Mercer and as a lead actuary. And then when they decided to start looking at benefits, he started a company called Mercer Financial Planning, where he actually brought together economists and psychologists and other professionals to work with his math in how we could fund public health and how we could fund benefits. So he was avant-garde, and so he retired in his late 60s. In his 70s, he became a councilman for our major city where we lived in Montreal. And then in his 80s, he decided he wasn't still finished, and he went on to become an investment analyst for the oil and gas sector. So,
well, happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, right? Happy birthday, Dad. So thanks for that. I just wanted to say the shout out to this incredible human who has given me so much to learn and understand. And now we can say, may peace be with him. Thanks. So I'm going to bring in Kurt now, who is my cohort in crime with the Peace Lab. I can't say crime when it comes to peace, man. So hi, Kurt.
Bienvenidos, welcome, namaste, apke sahe, and all that good stuff. I'm so happy to be here. And I just want to explain a little bit about the Peace Lab. The Peace Lab was founded, I got to read this, was founded by Kurt Kruger. And of course, Leslie, this incredible woman that I get to work with, and all the other people that are in the team, we get to bring it forth in all its fruition. And it was the symbol for the Peace Lab was created by Marsha Raff's Peace Labyrinth. And if you look on othernetworks.org and look up Peace Lab, you'll find that. We are here to uncover the unexplored assumptions and beliefs that hold the mystery of peace, which is ready to be activated. We're ready for it. Who isn't with the way this world is? So you can join us in any way you can, from smiling on the streets to talking with your neighbors who happen to be from the quote other side and all that, making friends, and so on and so forth. We'll get together in an after chat so we can actually have a dialogue like you'd speak with your neighbors. So I'm excited for today's gift that we have to offer you. That gift is a magical man who I first met in the 80s. And I'm going to let Leslie, of course, introduce our lead person. So yes,
well,
thank you so much.
You know what? This is kind of like a silly thing. It's like introducing somebody that everybody knows, right? But it needs to be said because I'm going to invite Bruce in, and we are all fans. It's a man that may not need a major introduction because his work is universally understood and known, and we hope increasingly embraced. So we know Bruce is a cell biologist and lecturer. He's internationally recognized as bridging that gap between science and spirituality. He was on the faculty of the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, and he later performed his groundbreaking stem cell research at Stanford University. So I know him and was awakened to the new sciences through the biology of belief, but he's gone on to do many other amazing pieces of work, the honeymoon effect and the spontaneous evolution with Steve Brayman. But you know where the connection is for us in peace is that in 2009, Bruce received the Goi Peace Award in Japan, and it's in honor of his scientific contribution to world harmony. So when I think about that, I think who best to have as our guest today, but the incredible Bruce Lipton. So come on in, Bruce. We'd love to see that shiny face, who's Hello.
Hi, Leslie, Kurt, and Jim. I want to thank you all. And I also want to add this. I want to thank our audience, because our audience are the cultural creatives, the people that are saying there's another way to live on this planet. And that's, we're going to look outside the box, because there's a lot of trouble inside the box. And the answers are actually outside the box. And the Peace Lab is really what is offering the alternative way of life on this planet, to take us from this messy chaos we're in into a thrivable future. And so I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk to this amazing community, and to each of you, which are the real cultural creatives, to bring this out into the world.
Well, we're going to learn more about what we're being charged to do, Bruce. But you know what? I love the story of you at 6 years of age, when you first looked down the lens of a microscope and you saw those, and you called them the little people moving around the slide, which then who would have thought that, years later, you would be the one to actually understand those little moving cells in such a distinct way. So let's start with the very beginning, which is the cell. And just for our audience sake, we're going to go out from the cell into epigenetics, into the world in which we live right now in this 6th stage mass extinction, but we'll get there later. And then what do we do about it? So we are going to trail through that process. But first, let's start with the cell. When you say the consciousness of a cell, what do we mean?
Well, the whole idea of consciousness is such a radically large term, in the sense of, how do you want to define it? And you could define, I could have 4 or 5 pages on the nature of human consciousness and the complexities of it. But it really comes down to the simple fact is, what is consciousness? And that is the ability to respond to environment. That something's going on and you can read it and make a change. And from understanding that, consciousness was in the very first organisms that lived on this planet, which were bacteria, because bacteria live in an environment and interact with this environment and adjust their genetics and their biology with the environment. And cells were first at just independent cells. So for the first life on this planet, which was a couple of billion years ago, for millions and millions of years, all there were single cells, just like bacteria, single cells. And then they evolved into like amoebas. And I go, so what was relevant? Well, first it was just all individual cells. But then about, over 600 million years ago or so, cells started to come together and form community. And what we see when we look at our eyes, if you see animals and plants and we say, oh, there's a human and there's a dog, and I go, those are actually communities. A human is actually comprised of 50 trillion cells, a number that I just said so easily, trillion. And I say, count a trillion. It will take you generations to start 1, 2, 3 to get to a trillion. It's so big. As a matter of fact, if you took a trillion $1 bills and lined them end to end, it would go past the sun. So it's like, okay, that's a very large number of bills. So we're made out of 50 trillion cells. So we're actually a community. All the plants and animals that we see are by definition communities of cells. A human, I'm Bruce, you call me, but Bruce is made out of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. And cells started out as single, just living in very loose community, more or less, but then came together and started to share awareness, because the awareness is what evolution is based on. We've always been led to believe that evolution is based on genes, the Darwinian theory that says as you go up the evolutionary tree from simple to complex, are more and more and more genes. And it turns out after the Human Genome Project, this whole thing fell right apart, because we don't have any more genes than some very primitive organisms. There's a worm that's 0.5 millimeter. It's just almost visible, 1,250 cells. And we have the same number of genes as the worm, 20,000 plus genes. So it's like, oh, then there's not an evolution of genetics. And I say, well, what is evolution? Evolution is based on consciousness. the more consciousness an organism has, the higher up the tree it is. And I go, well, cells have consciousness. That's what we talked about, a single cell. And that's what I saw when I was 6 years old. That's what made, oh, it's not the amoeba that I saw in the microscope moving around. It wasn't like a pinball bouncing just all over the place, but it was like looking over here, and then it moved over here and looked over there. And as a kid, I was looking at it going, they're actually, moving around like living things, not pinballs. And I started to recognize, well, but they're looking at things and they're moving and they recognize things. And it's like, oh, they're little tiny people. And here's a joke. With all the 50 trillion cells that make up a human, we have not one new function in our human body that was not already present in the first cells. And all of a sudden it goes, well, what are we? We're just a composite of awareness. A cell has a unit of awareness, and 50 trillion cells have 50 trillion units of awareness. And evolution is coming together as a community. And then the community comes together and creates other communities, and we call that a garden. And I go, why is it relevant? Because we came from a garden, we evolved. And I go, so what's relevant? And the point is this: a garden is not a battleground. A garden is the height of cooperation. That's what a garden is all about. So we came from the garden, and then we got so smart that we said, well, we can dominate and control the garden. And that was the mission of science in 1650. It's still the mission of science to control and dominate nature. I go, how's that working out? And I go, well, with all the science and all the technology, we as humans have created what is called the sixth mass extinction of life. I go, what does that mean? I go, well, first, if it's 6, then there must have been 5 previous mass extinctions. I go, yeah, we had this belief that evolution, like Darwinian, started off real simple and just a gradual evolution. I go, no, there were evolution, crashes, evolution, crash, and it crashed 5 times. The last crash of evolution was 66 million years ago when the dinosaurs were here, and a comet hit near the Yucatan Peninsula, and it upended the web of life, and all the dinosaurs disappeared. Up 75% of life disappeared just from that one comet. So I go, okay, so these are called mass extinctions, where you build it up, crash, and then build it up again. I hate to say this, but it's only been 15 years that science has recognized that we are now in the 6th mass extinction. And what's unique about this one? Humans are manifesting their own extinction. This is the human-derived extinction. We, as humans, in our attempt to dominate and control nature, have actually undermined the web of life that now threatens human civilization. And you might say, well, oh, in 1,000 years or something we'll go extinct. I say, no, in a couple of decades, maybe. And because it's this quick, it's coming. We've ignored it for 15 years. We're ignoring it today. And I say, so why is it relevant? Every bit of chaos that we see, and Jim brought it up, we talked about there's wars and military upset, and we have the pandemic, all kinds of chaos going on in this world, and people are going, oh, the world's crazy. And I go, this is the most important part of our evolution. I go, why? Because the conventional evolution that we just came from, that we're still in, is the cause of the extinction, the way we're living. And humans have to change to survive, because the way we have behavior, it's undermining things. So I say, so why is it relevant? I go, if I give a simple analogy, okay, a caterpillar is the most voracious of organisms. You put a caterpillar on a plant, it will eat every damn leaf off of the plant. And I go, it's a voracious organism, eats up its environment. And I say, then what? Well, once it reaches a certain size, it stops moving and it wraps itself in a cocoon. And after a period of time, a butterfly comes out. And I go, the caterpillar is the most voracious of organisms. The butterfly is the lightest touch of all. It doesn't even touch the planet that much. And I go, okay, so what's the difference here in our relationship? I go, a caterpillar is made out of millions of cells. Like I said, every organism is a giant community. And I say, so let's consider this. We're cells inside a caterpillar, and we're voraciously growing. And oh my God, everybody's working, the digestive cells, the muscle cells, everything, a brain, everybody's working as this organism is eating up the environment and reaches this end. And then it stops moving and it stops eating. And I go, well, if you're a cell inside that caterpillar, I say, what do you think's going on? I say, first of all, we were all working. Now there's no more jobs. The jobs are disappearing and there's no more digestion. There's no more movement. And I go, so what? The civilization of cells starts to it's out of work and they start to fall apart. The community is not so coherent as it was in a caterpillar. So I say, inside that cocoon, there's a breakdown of the caterpillar cells. Now there's a soupy business of cells. They don't have, the thing is falling apart. They got what to do. And then there's cells in that community that I love the name. They're called imaginal cells. And these are the cells that have a vision for the future. And they say, look, let's rebuild this system and create the butterfly. And so then as some cells are coming and breaking down, other cells are building up. Okay, this is called chaos. And I say chaos doesn't mean random. Chaos means there's something going on as a pattern, but you may not see it. And I say today's world is chaos because what we're focusing on is like, oh, it's all falling down. I'm losing my job. They're closing this and that. And it's like, oh my God, oh my God. So we're like caterpillar cells in a cocoon going, oh, it's falling apart. And then I say, but there are people like the Peace Lab. And there are so many other organizations that say, wait, there's a better way to do this. And it says you have to pull out of the old structure because the old structure is the cause of the problem. And so when you see it falling apart, and half the people are going, oh, it's falling apart. Oh, I'm scared to death. I go, if it didn't fall apart, I would really be scared to death because if we continued as we're going a couple of decades, boom, this thing is gone. And so I say, so falling apart is really good. But focusing on falling apart, really bad. The really good part is if we're falling apart, where can we go? Mm-hmm. And the Peace Lab is laying out a plan and a formula to tell you there's a better way to live on this planet that is in harmony, go back to the harmony that the garden was before we put our big footprints in it. So look at the world. It looks crazy. And I go, thank goodness, because if it stayed the way it was, extinction of humans is in the very imminent future. And so I look at the chaos going, all right, because this is the time to build a new foundation. That's why things that were not good in our civilization that were under the cover, because it's just always been that way. The Me Too generation, how women have been second-class citizens and all this. You can't move into the future with that. Black people, Black Lives Matter, minority people, they've been, pushed off to the side. It's like, no, you can't do this. Every human is a cell, and we're coming together in a giant human multicellular organism called humanity. I go, what is humanity? All the humans in one organism. And to do that, we had to break the old structure of separation, barriers, and all that kind of stuff, and antagonism. And we have to bring up the dirt. Why? Because if you don't care the dirt, you can't take that dirt and bring it into the future. So then when you look at it and you go, oh my God, so much upheaval, I'm going, great, air it all out, because we're going to be in the process of building this new civilization right now. But the last thing, you can't do it if you're holding on to the old one, because the old one is the problem. So I celebrate this, and people go, how can you celebrate what looks crazy? And I go, because if we don't do it, it's worse. Yes, Leslie.
Well, as a biologist, I mean, you're so clear about the fact that cells go through, that there's no life, death, it's a continuum. It's not one ends, the way in which cells teach us about how they evolve is a critical part to this larger metaphor that you're giving us. And so does epigenetics give us a very important piece of science that then can be mapped out into a larger frame. So let's just talk briefly about the breakthrough in epigenetics and how does it apply to what we now need to do as human cells navigating evolution.
Well, Leslie, the first thing we have to understand is a famous quote. I don't know if it's a quote or it's a truism, and that is knowledge is power. And I go, why is it relevant? Because the more knowledge we have, the more powerful we become, and that's the drive force. But I want to put it in context of today's world and say the same thing in a slightly different way. And what I would say is this: a lack of knowledge is a lack of power. And then I'd also have to say, then misinformation means a lack of knowledge, which then disempowers us. So let's start with this. We've all been programmed with the concept of genetics, that genes control the character of our lives. And I go, let's step back 1 second and say, what does that mean? I say, well, first of all, did we pick the genes we came with? I go, as far as we know, I don't know. But if you don't like your traits, can you change the genes? I go, no. And then we tell you that genes turn on and off by themselves. And I go, well, wait a minute. The genes control my life, my character. They turn on and off by themselves. I'm not even involved with this. And all of a sudden I start to realize what people are saying, oh, well, there's cancer genes in my family and I'm going to get a cancer. My father died when he was 49. My grandfather died when he was 51 and I'm 50 and I'm scared to death because I'm going to die like the family genes. I go, we bought that story. I say, so why is it relevant? Because we didn't pick the genes, can't change them, and they control themselves. Then we become victims of our heredity, and people walk around in fear. Oh my God, there's cancer running in the family. Oh my God, I've got the breast cancer gene, says Angelina Jolie as a young, healthy woman. And the vision of my mother died of breast cancer, Angelina's mother and her mother. And so Angelina just considered the situation and said, well, if I have a double mastectomy, I will be free of the cancer gene. I go, that's actually not true because that same gene is in all the cells and it will manifest if it does, at another place, especially like the uterus and ovaries. So you really have to go through a hysterectomy, take the breast off and all those parts to be, maybe safe from it, but you can never be safe. I go, so why is it relevant? Because, well, first of all, Angelina, half the women that have this gene never get the cancer. I go, so why is it relevant? Possession of the gene doesn't cause cancer. You can have the gene and never have the cancer. I go, oh. I say, why is it relevant? Because we now know that genes do not turn on and off by themselves. Genes are controlled by our consciousness. And you go, what is that? I say, my experiment from 50 years ago was I put genetically identical cells in 3 Petri dishes. I changed the chemical composition of what we call culture medium, which is the environment that cells grow in. So I had 3 dishes, genetically identical cells, but 3 different environments, the chemistry of the culture medium. And in one dish, the cells form muscle, and the next they form bone. And in the third, with a different environment, they form fat cells. And I go, so what's the relevance? Well, they all have the same genes. So I said, well, then what controlled the fate? And I say, it was the environment that they were living in. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, genes didn't control this? No, environment controls genes. And I go, well, just to bring it up to humans now, I say, so I put cells in a culture dish, I put culture medium, and I say, what is culture medium? It's the equivalent of blood. And I go, why is it relevant? Well, then look at this. Human body is a skin-covered Petri dish. Underneath my skin, 50 trillion cells, but I have the original culture medium, blood. And I say, well, then what controls the genetics? I say, not the genes. They don't turn themselves on and off. It's a false understanding completely. A gene is a blueprint, just like in an architect's office. You go into an architect's office, she's working on a blueprint, and you ask her, is your blueprint on or off? And she'll look at you like, it's a blueprint. There's no on and off. I go, exactly. A gene is a blueprint. It's controlled by the environmental signals. And I go, and in the body, the culture medium is our blood. That's the original culture medium. And I go, so does it make a difference if the cell's in a plastic dish or in a skin covered dish? Nope. It's still controlled by the culture medium. So I say, oh, then in genes in my body, the cells in my body, their genes are controlled by the blood composition. And then I go, okay, well, then who's the chemist that controls that chemistry that controls my genes? And I go, the brain is the chemist. That's the one that determines what kind of hormones and neuropeptides and things should be in the blood, which are adjusting the cells. And then I go, and here's the final step, and that is this. Okay, the brain is a chemist, but what chemistry should the brain put into the blood, which in turn controls my genes? And I go, here it is. Whatever picture you hold in your mind, that picture is translated into complementary chemistry, which the brain releases into the blood, which then goes to the 50 trillion cells and adjusts their genetics. And I go, so why is it relevant? I go, change the picture in your mind and you change the chemistry of your body and you change your genetics. And I go, oh, then all of a sudden I'm not a victim of my genetics. My consciousness is the master of my genetics. And all of a sudden it says, so what are you thinking? Is that picture in your head love, or is that picture in your head fear? I go, why is the difference? And I'll tell you is that in a picture of love, let's say you close your eyes and when you open them up, there's someone you love. I say, what's the picture? Picture of love. I go, okay, and what chemistry does the brain release in love? I go, endorphins, pleasure. That's why we love to be in love, pleasure. It releases oxytocin, which bonds us to the pleasure. That's the chemistry adjusting our genetics. I say vasopressin is a release from the brain in love, and that makes you more attractive physiologically to your partner to keep them. And lastly, growth hormone. So when you're in love, you release growth hormone, which does what it says. I go, why? When people fall in love, they glow. They're healthy. And I go, was that an accident? I go, no, that was the result of a picture of love chemistry. I say, but if you open your eyes and you see something that scares you, you don't release love chemistry, you release fear chemistry. Oh, that's a complete opposite. Well, love chemistry gives you growth. Fear chemistry shuts off growth, and it shuts down the immune system. And it gets you ready for what? Fight or flight.
Yeah.
So I say, oh, the picture in your mind. So then I say, so who's giving you this picture? And who's controlling that picture? Because if you buy a picture, then you bought a chemistry that will adjust your body to that picture. And all of a sudden I say, why is it relevant? We must stop believing that genes control our lives. Fact, here's a fact. There's not one gene that causes cancer. Not one gene causes cancer. There's not a gene. You have this gene, you get cancer. I go, oh, what about the BRCA cancer gene? I go, that's what I just said. Half the women have the gene. They don't get the cancer. So having the gene itself, it's having a life that is not in harmony, and having that gene, that's when you express a cancer. And
so one of the things that you've really done a breakthrough on is around that what part of our brain is activating what chemistry. And I just want to layer in here a personal reflection on what you're saying, is that when my husband was diagnosed with end-stage cancer, the doctor, and you say this quite often in your lectures, when the doctor says you have cancer, you have cancer. So, and yes, it was medically proven. Yes, the diagnostic did it. And I never believed that that was the end state. You know, he's got 12 months, that's it. And so we went to the Bahamas where we did stem cell work. And so as you started in stem cells. So yes, we did stem cell injection into his blood to build the proteins that weren't being built by his own cellular composition. Now, the interesting thing is that he then believed that this therapy was working. And so his belief was, oh, this is going to happen. I'm going to get not maybe better, but I'm not going to have 12 months. I have a different trajectory. And I asked him, sitting in the clinic in the Bahamas, so what do you think this trajectory is? And he said, oh, I think I'll be about 5 years. And I said, oh, why 5 years? And he goes, no, it's just a sense that I have, because, he thought he would live till just around 60. And I'm going, Greg. This is not the case. We are now engaged in alternative therapy, stem cell work. We have Western medicine working on our side as well as Eastern medicine working on our side. Let's just forget about all of that and stay in the moment of you being healthy and happy and all of that. Well, Bruce, here's what happened. 5 years, tick-tock. And during that 5 years, I kept working with him. Greg, you're holding the belief about this. You need to shift the belief about what this is doing for us. It's a wake-up call. Let's use it as that. And he then would get mad at me and he'd say, you telling me that I'm making my cancer? And I said, no, we're not going there. I'm saying if you shift your belief, we can shift the chemistry in your brain that's triggering what's going on in your body. And we did not have great dialogue around that, because he was committed to the fact that the doctors knew more than I did. And if the doctor said, this is what was happening, this is what's happening. And on the day when the doctor said, the Western doctor said, I think it's now down to a year, he died that night from a heart attack.
This is so unfortunate, because our belief system, our consciousness, the picture in our mind, is controlling our biology and our genetics. And when we were very young, we were programmed with a belief that there are professionals and we're not professional. And that if a professional that we given credit to as the professional makes a statement, that becomes our truth. So a doctor's prognosis, when a patient comes from a normal conventional family I grew up with, oh, anybody's sick, we go to the doctor. I say, well, what did you learn by that? And the answer was, well, when it comes to health, I'm not the one who knows about it. The doctor is the one who knows about it. And the doctor's words then become the picture in my mind. And when the doctor says you have X number of months or whatever it is, the mind's picture is, yep, it's a calendar. It says on this time is when I'm going to die. Whether I had the cancer or not, that's the problem, because the idea is you bought a belief and the belief controls your biology. And if it's a negative belief, well, you bought that too. And then that will control your biology. And you were trying to help him get beyond that. But then the problem is, well, where is his belief coming from? And this becomes the big issue, because it comes from the mind. I go, yeah, but the mind, the mind one, two minds. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand the relationship between these two minds, then the whole thing gets crazy. And I go, so what are the two minds? Well, I go, the latest evolution of the brain is right behind your forehead. It's called the prefrontal cortex. And this is the seat of the conscious mind. And that's the latest evolution. I said, well, what was there before the conscious mind? He said, the rest of the brain is called the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind means it operates without you thinking about it. It takes care of your heartbeat, your breathing rate, your body temperature, all these. You can control those things, but normally under automatic control, subconscious autopilot. Okay. And I go, so why is it relevant? Because the subconscious turns out to be the programmed mind that runs 95% of our life. Our behavior comes from the subconscious mind. I go, okay, back off a little bit. The mind is a computer. Yes, it's the ultimate computer, but it has all the parallels of our silicon-based computer. It's got a startup system. Yep. Last trimester of pregnancy, the brain's you can start it up, open it up. And I go, okay. So I go buy a brand new computer. I push start, it boots up. Now I say, let's do something. Let's make a drawing. Let's write a composition. I go, can't do it. I go, why not? oh, first you have to put programs into a computer, because although it can boot up, if there's no programs, I can't use it. And then once the programs are in, then I can engage the keyboard and add my information. Okay. So I go, so what does it mean? I say, the last trimester of pregnancy, the brain boots up. But now, guess what it does for 7 years? It downloads programs. I go, how does it do that? Why does it do that? I go, you want to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community? You know how many rules and behaviors you have to know to be a functional member? I mean, it would take a book about that thick to list every kind of behavior that you have, to coordinate your life with everybody else. I say, an infant can't read the damn book. I say, yeah, nature helps. It made the first 7 years download because the brain is operating at a level below consciousness called theta. Theta is characterized as imagination. And that's why kids have a tea party and they pour nothing into the cup and they drink the nothing. And it was, oh, that's the greatest tea I ever had. And I go, that's theta, imagination and reality coming together. And I go, but theta is hypnosis. I go, so why is it relevant? If I need to know the programs, the thousands of ways to behave, I can't read them. I'll watch. And so we are programmed as infants to watch our mother, our father, siblings, and community and download their behavior, because that's how I'm going to get off the ground. I need a program. So how does a boy generally behave? Generally by watching the father. Doesn't mean that's the only source, could be the mother. It doesn't make any difference. Somebody has to be the one I'm programming myself with. And that's when we also learn to program when it comes to health, I don't know anything, but the doctor knows everything. So I'm going to give the doctor the opportunity to program because I agree. Okay. And so I say, so the first 7 years is program. Consciousness kicks in, that's creative. Subconscious is habitual. Consciousness is creative. So it can take a program that has a habit in it or alter it in such a way to create a different result. So that's the keyboard. My consciousness can type on the program and create what I want. So consciousness is creative, subconsciousness is program. And I go, so what's the relevance? And the relevance comes down to this, and that closing point is, well, which mind is controlling my life? Is it the creative one with wishes and desires and aspirations? I want to be healthy. I want to have a great relationship. I want to have a wonderful job. That's a vision. That's creative. That's conscious mind. And I say, that only works 5% of the day. 95% of the day, we are actually being run by the programs that we got from other people. I said, why is it relevant? Because those programs don't necessarily answer what you want in your life. And if they had a bad behavior, you inherited that. You didn't inherit the genes, you inherited the behavior. And so it turns out, for example, cancer is not due to the gene, it's due to the behavior that is passed on. And demonstrating that is if an infant is adopted into a family where there's cancer in that family, the adopted child will get the same family cancer, but the adopted child came from totally different genetics. The cancer didn't come from the genes, it came from the behavior that was not in harmony. And so now I say, so why is it relevant? Well, we have been programmed to believe there's anything that's wrong with me is my genetics. And I go, that means I'm a victim.
Yeah.
And when you're a victim, that means you're powerless. And when you're powerless, you will pay any amount to the one who offers you that power back. So like the pharmaceutical company, my brother had Hep C and they said, oh, guess what? We have a cure for Hep C. I go, oh, cool. And my brother said, what is it? And he said, these pills, you just need whatever, I forgot how many pills, 100 plus of these pills. And I said, well, how much are the pills? $1,000 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have Hep C and you want to live without Hep C, all you need is $100,000. I go, what kind of humanity is that? The person's sick, they're down, and now you're kicking them saying, well, I'll help you stand up if you have $100,000. I go, this is no humanity. This is antagonistic to it. These are the people that are taking advantage of you being a victim. I'll tell you the worst one. I forgot which company it is. There's a myoneural problem with babies. There's a certain one. And that these babies, when they're born with this, will live to like a few years and then they'll die. So a mother that gives birth to one of these babies is already like, oh my God, my child is not going to make it but so many years and they're going to die. Then this company comes along and says, we have a new technology to save your baby. And I go, oh, and then there's a little price tag. What's that? It's $1,300,000. And I go, is that any different between a gangster coming up, sticking a gun in your side, saying, give me $1 million, and I'll save your baby? I go, this is this is not human. This is taking advantage of people. And the pharmaceutical company does this all the time. And it's based on a belief.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into that because we're going to go into COVID in a minute. But just before we do that, I want to actually talk about environment right now.
Yes.
And in terms of environment, I'm thinking of, for example, my granddaughter, who is 5 going on 6. She's been living inside her theta, hypnotized, pulling in all the data around her to create her subconscious programming.
Yes.
Doing this during a time where she's wearing a mask, where there's fear all around her, where she's not interacting in school because now she's online because of lockdown again, where her world, her programming period for that most significant time is now being created by an environment of which fear, social distance, all of those elements are being programmed into that little subconscious of hers. What is going to be the impact of this type of fundamental programming? And what do we as parents and grandparents do in light of this is the world that she's downloading?
I am so upset by this as a scientist, because what you're doing is you're promoting a separation of people, where social distancing, don't communicate with these people, hide in your house, keep away from other people. And I go, this is anti-evolution. Evolution is the development of community. This pandemic is anti-evolution because it is the destruction of community and the belief in the fear that has been raised. And I go, yeah, but if the fear comes from the people that you have been programmed to believe as the truth provider, you will give up everything because of the fear that they're monitoring, that they're providing. And I say, why is this relevant? Because you have now manipulated and altered evolution by scaring the hell out of everybody. And I have friends that I haven't seen in a couple of years because they don't even venture out of their house. And I have other friends that will like to talk to you, but we don't want to be around too many people. And I'm going, what's going on here? Everyone is being separated. Stay in your house. Stay away from people. I go, anti-evolution. Evolution has come together and recognized that we are in a community in a garden, and that the garden grows by the community working in harmony with each other. The fear is the most unfortunate situation. I could go back to 1933. Franklin D. Roosevelt is inaugurating an inauguration speech. What did he say? It is the fear that is the problem in our world today that's causing the depression, which it was. And it's interesting because not only did the fear of the people in depression affect the other people, it affected the environment, and the breadbasket of the United States became a dust bowl. Why? Fear. And I said, well, what did he do? He said, stop being in fear and come out and start growing. And it's interesting because fear and growth are mutually exclusive behaviors. Growth means you have to be open to take things in, assimilate, take something in, whether it's love or food. You have to be open and you go to the source. Wherever that stimulus is coming from, you go to it and you take it in. I said, what is fear? And I go, just the opposite. Fear is you go away from the source and you close yourself down. I say, well, you can't be open and closed at the same time. You can't go to the stimulus and away from the stimulus at the same time. So if you get into fear, you will shut down growth. And then I say, that's what kills people. Now, a fact of science is this: we have a health crisis on this planet. And we've been led to believe that genes are responsible for, all these issues that people have: diabetes, cardiac, whatever, cancer, blah, blah, blah. Genes did it. It turns out, science fact, less than 1%, less than 1% of disease is connected to genes. 90% of disease is stress. And I go, stress, yeah, fear. Is my life threatened in any way? Will I be able to keep this job? Will I be able to have health care to take care of my kids and my family? Will I be able to have money to, pay the rent? Because we live in that stress. And so much of our country today lives week by week. I got enough money this week to pay for next week. And when this pandemic came in, they had no money. What do you think that's going to do? And then I said, what do you think it's going to do when you turn on the TV and it's like, you're going to die. You're going to die because this is lethal. This COVID is lethal. And everybody's tuned in going, ooh, I'm so afraid. And I go, what is afraid? Stress. I go, what does it do? Stress hormones prepare you to run away from that proverbial, the saber-toothed tiger when we were like thousands of years ago. I go, so why is it relevant? Because when stress hormones are released in the body, it takes you out of growth, open, stimulation. It takes you out of that and puts you into protection. It shuts down growth. The stress hormones shut down growth. You go, why? And the answer is, because if I'm going to run away from the tiger, I want all of the energy that I can muster up to run away from that tiger. I go, so what does it mean? Stress hormones shut down functions that are not related to running away from the tiger. And you say growth, and you say, oh yeah, but I'm an adult. And I go, look, remember you had 50 trillion cells? Well, every second or so, you lose like 3 million cells. At the end of the day, you've lost billions of cells. Every one of us, that's aging. But the cells get replaced because we have stem cells. Do you have stem cells? Oh, here's the point. If you're here watching this program, you have stem cells, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to replace the dying cells and you would have been dead as a kid. Okay. So I go, so what? We all have stem cells. And I go, well, what about them? I say, when we're in stress, replacing the dead cells versus running away from that tiger, which one do you want to put the energy into? It's like, the hell with the cells. If the tiger eats you, you got no cells anyway. So we shut down growth with stress hormones so we can allocate the energy to run away. And okay. I go, what other thing? And here it is. What other thing gets shut down to conserve energy to run away? And the answer is the immune system. I go, well, the immune system protects you from internal threat. Yeah, so I have a bacterial infection and a tiger's chasing me. Let me allocate the energy. How much should I fight the bacteria with? How much energy should I put into the tiger? And the answer is, it's a no-brainer, man. Who needs the immune system if the tiger's going to eat you? So the stress hormones shut off the immune system. The more threat that a person experiences, the more their immune system is compromised. And that is why 90% of illness is coming from what? Stress. And then I go, so tell me about the news today. Was that very promising? I go, no, every day it's more threat. Every day that weakens us. And I go, my God, if I'm concerned about a COVID infection and I'm stressed every day, my immune system is being shut down every day. I am open for infection. And all of a sudden you start to realize they're scaring the hell out of people to get the damn COVID shot. And the idea is what? That fear alone is the cause of illness.
So we know that coronavirus has been around for 50 million years. So we know it's been around since the inception of time.
Yes.
Of humans. So what is it about? What has been occurring that has created the collision course of a pandemic that is, as you say, fear induced in the way in which we are sociologically dealing and politically dealing with it. And we are seeing this chaos occur as a result. Is this part of the imaginal cells in the caterpillar going into the butterfly? Where does COVID-19 fit into all of this?
It's a chaos that is undoing civilization. And it points out to what? Is it because everybody is going to die of the COVID? That was the original story. Oh, millions and millions of people are going to die. And I go, wait a second. Wait a second. Who's affected by this COVID? Let's stop for a second. 40% of, when they started, okay, mortality is the fear, dying. I say, how do you calculate mortality? You take the number of people who are dying from the disease and divide it by the number of people who have the disease. Okay? And I go, so why is it relevant? The original numbers were based on the number of people dying plus undivided by the number of people who went to the doctor or to the hospital for COVID. Well, that was a smaller number than people who were infected by COVID. And I said, what? The smaller the number underneath that, how many died, the greater the percent of death. So when we started off the whole COVID thing, it scared the hell out of me because, anywhere from 5 to 6 or 8% of the people, that means 6 to 8 out of every, percent are going to die. Well, that's a massive number. And I go, wow, that's a really lethal disease. And then they started checking everybody for infection. And guess what they found? 80% or more of the people had the infection, but never went to a doctor, never went to a hospital. I say, so why is it relevant? They were not included in that number underneath, which is the determinant of the percent. And I say, so why is it relevant? At first, it was like 5, 6%. That's a large number. But now it's turned out to 0.05 or something like that, 0.05%. I go, oh, 1,000 times less than what you were telling me already. And I go, so why is it relevant? The fear that promoted this in the beginning was that the numbers were high in mortality of the numbers who went to the doctor versus the number who died after going to the doctor, okay? And I go, so why is it relevant? 80% of the people, once they started testing everybody, 80% of the people that were infected never had a serious enough case to see a doctor or go to a hospital. They were never counted. 40% of the people that were infected didn't even know they were infected. I go, so why is it relevant? Because as you said, coronaviruses have been around for millions of years. And I go, there's cross-reactivity from previous exposures to different versions of that cross-react with the COVID. So 40% had cross-reactivity so much that they didn't even know they had COVID. 80% had cross-reactivity, but not enough to stop the flu. And then the part that died, and I go, what? Oh yeah, I'm not, dismissing them. I'm saying, what is it that caused those people to die while 80% had no problem? And the answer was, they had what are called comorbidities. They've been challenged in their immune system, that their immune system is weak. A comorbidity is something that is taxing your immune system. 60% of Americans have one comorbidity at least, but 40% of Americans have collectively 2.6 comorbidities. And I said, what does that mean? Well, that means 40% of Americans have somewhere close to 3 comorbidities. I go, they are compromised. They're completely compromised. If they get the COVID, it's not as easy as the other 80% that have the COVID and heal from it, no problem. So, and then I say, well, what do they tell the people that are having the problem? Well, do this and this and this and this. And at the very end, they say, and try and stay healthy. I go, are you kidding me? Staying healthy is number one, because if you're healthy, you could be up to the 40% that didn't even know you had the damn COVID in the first place.
So Bruce, would you say then that the combination of the extent of comorbidities that exist in Americans multiplied by the stress syndrome that is occurring through fear, multiply that by the immune system breakdown because the body is no longer creating a healthy immune system, and you've got a perfect storm.
Yes.
For infection.
Yes. And I say, so how would I deal with it, me as a scientist? I would say, first of all, recognize if you have comorbidities. Why? Because first of all, if you have comorbidities, then you're the one that really has to take care of yourself because you're already open, okay? And if you have comorbidities, then what can you do? Then you have to try and get healthy. You have to eat well. You have to take vitamins and supplements. You have to exercise, and you have to not have the fear, because the fear will cancel everything else anyway, because the stress hormones from fear will shut down the immune system. So you scare the hell out of people, and all of a sudden they are now more susceptible because the stress hormones, weaken their immune system. So basically it says, is this as really lethal as they said? And I said, for people who have comorbidities, yes, because they're not taking care of themselves. I said, but for the rest of the population, the best thing you can do if you have no comorbidity is get the damn COVID, get the immune system to kick in, and you'll get a response that exceeds any vaccine by 1,000,000 times, because the immune system is more intelligent than any vaccine that exists at this point. But if you hide the immune system and try and protect yourself, it's like you're just waiting for a crack in the wall, and boom, once the crack in the wall is, now you're open. So basically, is the virus that lethal? And the answer is, to those that have comorbidities and aged people, especially aged people, I think some 60 to 80% in that number, 60 to 80 are people over 70 years of age whose bodies, who have not been taking care of themselves. Your father is a healthy person, his consciousness and his way of life, and there he can withstand this. But if you go into a lot of nursing homes, there are people at the last edges, sitting in chairs, slumped over, not being there. I go, boy, that's a ripe community. Those are the ones. And then I say comorbidity. I say, well, so what's the relevance? 80% of us shouldn't be involved with this, but that 20% that are compromised, it's their responsibility to take care of themselves. We can help, but to put the weight on 80% of the people and say you can't have your job and you can't travel here and you got to have your mask and all that, it's like, no, I would put the weight on, if you have a comorbidity, then you're the one that has to have the responsibility to allow us to be free. Because yeah,
I'm going to go to the notion that you say that The Matrix is a documentary. It's not a sci-fi film. And so what I want to comment on is that when we think of the role that the machine has been doing over the last, decades, let's talk about it, but particularly in the last year, and the fear orientation and the powerlessness triggers, all of that, the Fauci show, all of that machine has been operating in spades. As a scientist, what do you say about this machine that's been in operation?
I am embarrassed by what is going on in this world today as a scientist. And the reason why I'm embarrassed for it is that the government is pushing a program from a small group of people that says we are the source of information, and anybody who has different information is not relevant, so don't listen to them. So they put these blinders on and say, this is the only truth. And it's like, science has been shut down and not allowed to offer anything that challenges the one source. That's what they call it. We're the one source. That's what they call it. It's like, what? You canceling science if it doesn't fit your one source? Because it's a one source is a global control. Think about this. We've always been concerned about a global government. And I go, this is the example of it. We're living it. And I go, what? The entire world is responding to the ideas of a small group of people, the one source. And they've taken over the consciousness of the entire planet. And I go, that is the beginning of what you call a world government, where all around the planet, everybody has given up their power to the one source. Sort of like the church in the old days, where, infallible knowledge. We are the one source of knowledge. Well, today, Fauci's group is, we are the one source. Don't listen to anybody else. And I go, oh my God, censorship of science. It's like, and I go, and then people buy into it because science has created all these problems. I go, science did not create the problems. Technology created the problem. I go, what's technology? People who looked at the science and says, I can benefit. I can do something with this belief system and make a benefit and create something, pharmaceutical company and all that kind of stuff like that. You know what people don't understand? I'll give you a fact of science. The leading cause of death in the United States today is the medical profession. It's called iatrogenic illness. And that is an illness that says, I had an issue, I went to the doctor treated me, I got sick and died from the treatment, not from the problem. That's iatrogenic, and it's the leading cause of death, actually the third leading cause of death right now. It is by statistics the leading cause, but I'll accept third. You know why? Because even the medical profession acknowledges they're the third leading cause of death. They acknowledge that in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And that was, 15 or more years ago. And just this last couple of years, the British Medical Journal did the research again. What is the cause of death in the United States? And again, it comes out, primary cause is medical treatment. I go, so why is it relevant? It's technology, not science.
So then given that, what's the antidote to this? How do we, here we are inside of that caterpillar, we're cocooned, we're in the imaginal cell stage. How do we transform into the butterfly, given that the pressure on the caterpillar is so great to not even think about the imaginal cells because it's too busy trying to survive in this current reality?
Well, right, because the imaginal cells are talking about a whole new way of life. And the existing structure doesn't want to change, but that existing structure, what is the service? 1% of the people. 1% of the people get all the proceeds, 99% are supporting 1%, because that's the structure we bought into, but that's the structure that's cracking. So who do you think is trying to prevent you from getting your own power? Is the group that has already had the power, because they don't want to lose the power. And how they get it? Because they control. And the issue is, look, there's one of my favorite movies is called Sicko by Michael Moore, which is about the healthcare, the world healthcare situation. What's one of the interesting parts is there was an interview with Tony Benn, a member of parliament in London, a liberal member of parliament. And there's an excerpt of him as the interview, and he just looks in the camera and he says, governments do not want a healthy, intelligent population because they are difficult to control. And I go, whoa. And I go, I'm old guy, over 70 something here, and when I was young, the US was number one in good things. We had the technology, we had the best healthcare, we had the best infrastructure, we were grooving. And I say, well, where are we today? I go, we are some of the sickest people and some of the least intelligent people in regard to Western countries. We rank down way near the bottom now. I go, we were number one of all these wonderful, powerful things, and now we're near the bottom. I go, this is exactly what Tony Benn said is the intention.
Then given that it's in our conscious awareness that we are being asked to play. It's in that prefrontal cortex where we're being invited into imagining. So let's just
no. It's in our subconscious, the program to give up your power we accept other power.
No, but the antidote to this. So what I'm saying,
the antidote is consciousness.
Yes. So let's just in just like 5 minutes talk about the antidote in terms of how do we rewire our brain so that we are moving into that new imaginal world.
The first thing is to recognize this is that while our conscious mind is the creative one that has wishes and desires and all those things, the subconscious one is just program. That we are running 95% of our life from program. That's an established fact of science. And the reason why is consciousness could run the system, but consciousness can think. And you go, so I go, well, imagine the body as a vehicle and consciousness got its hands on the wheel and it's driving. And I say, where's it driving us to? Consciousness is going to drive you to wishes and desires. I go, great. But if consciousness is thinking, that's the problem, because thinking is an inside job. So consciousness, if I said, Leslie, tell me what you're doing at Sunday, and it's not written in front of you right now. And I ask you to, I know in a minute you'll come up with the answer. I say, where the hell did you get the answer? It's not written in front of you. You said, oh, I thought about it. I go, your conscious mind and thought is not looking out the window. It's now looking inside. So all of a sudden I said, the moment you start thinking, consciousness lets go of the wheel. I say, then who's driving? I go, subconscious is autopilot. So the moment I'm thinking, subconscious programs start to take over and drive the vehicle because my mind is not paying attention. And I go, oh, wow, well, this is a big problem here, because most of the programs in the subconscious are limiting and disempowering beliefs that we have. And I go, where did you get these beliefs? I say, we got them from other people during the first 7 years of programming, and that the rest of our life is 95% coming from the program, because that's how much time we spend thinking. So then I say, then your life is not based on wishes and desires. Your life is based on the program. And then you say, yeah, but what the heck are the programs? Because you were being programmed even before you were born, and you were programmed through first 7 years. And then 95% of your life comes from the program. And I go, hey, this is not even new. The Jesuits for 400 years told their followers, give me a child until it is 7 and I will show you the man. What did they know? They knew that whatever program I put in the first 7 years, 95% of your life is coming from that.
Right.
You're
So
not,
Bruce, my question is, I don't mean to interrupt.
to get to the point.
It's about how do we reprogram that subconscious? Because
okay, I'm going to try and do this because this is important, most important. Okay. And the first thing is this, what the hell are the programs? And I'm going to go, you weren't there consciously, so you don't have a conscious database of what the program is. But then I said, but 95% of your life is coming from the program. So the first thing is this, look at your life right now and say, hey, the things I like that come into my life, they come in because I have a program to let them come in. More importantly, anything you wish for and desire and you're struggling, working hard, putting a lot of effort in, I'm going to make this happen, I'm working. Why are you working so hard? And the answer is this. If there's resistance for it coming in, is because the program you have doesn't support that. And that's why we consciously try to work really hard. So the first thing is look at your life and say, where am I struggling? My health? Is it because my job, I'm not getting a good job, or my relationships aren't any good? And I go, if you're struggling, is because whatever program you have doesn't work. So now you want to change the program. Finally, we get into, Leslie's question, how the heck do you change the program? And I go, there are 3 ways to change the program. The first 2 ways are the natural way you got the program. I go, what's the first? The first 7 years, your brain was not in consciousness. It was in just a lower vibration called theta. And I go, well, how do I do that? Well, theta is hypnosis. I go, how do you do hypnosis? Somebody has to do it. And I go, no, you can do it yourself, because here's how it works. The vibrations of the brain when you're sleeping are very low, delta. In twilight reverie, when you're just waking up, it's in theta. That's mixing the real world and the imaginary world. And then when you wake up, you're in alpha, which is calm consciousness. And when you go to work, you're in beta, higher vibration. When you come home, as you start to relax, you go from beta back down to alpha. But the moment you close your eyes and you start to fall asleep, the brain drops to the next level, theta. Oh, well, that's the hypnosis one. So I say, well, you need self-hypnosis. I go, how do you do that? I said, you put earphones on when you go to bed, and you have a program play over those earphones of what you want, whether it's a health is what you're looking for, relationship, better job, whatever that program is that you want to be true. And you put these earphones on every night. And I go, what happens? At first, you're still awake and you can hear what's going on a little bit. But the moment your eyes close and you fall asleep, theta, the subconscious, is still receiving. Conscious mind went to sleep. So theta is the moment after conscious mind goes to sleep. For a period of time, there's a short period of time where theta is operating before you go to delta, absolute sleep. So when you have the earphones on, the moment you fall asleep, theta is now still hearing the message. and it's going straight into the subconscious. That's how you learned in the first place. So theta is a programmable state, and earphones on, self-hypnosis, number one. Number two, yeah, but that only worked for 7 years, but you learned programs after that. You learned how to drive a car, play an instrument. You learned how these things, and they became habits. And the subconscious mind is not evil. It's just a habit mind. It may have some bad programs, which will look evil, but hey, think about a good program. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. Are you still walking? You could be 100. Your dad's still walking. He didn't have to relearn walking. It was from before 2 years of age. So habits are good if they're good habits. Habits are bad if they're bad habits. And I said, well, how did you get them? And I say, after 7, you get a habit by practice, repetition. You want to drive a car? Practice. You want to play an instrument? Practice, repetition. So I say, okay, I got a bad habit. I want to change it. I say, well, then practice a new habit. The new agey, which is kind of funny in my mind, is fake it till you make it, which means if I'm not a happy person and you want to be happy, I say, I don't care what unhappiness is going on, but all day long, whenever you can, I am happy. I am happy. Say this to yourself, repeating it over and over. That's habituation. Then there'll be a day you wake up and go, hey, I'm happy, without even thinking about it, because now the program has been installed, habituation, it will now manifest, okay? So first way is hypnosis, second way is habituation, and the third way to me is the most important, because necessity is the mother of invention, and now there's a new technology called energy psychology, which engages something called super learning. I go, what's super learning? I go, maybe you've seen somebody read a book by moving their finger down the page, just like that. They read every word on the page. That's using super learning. I go, if you can engage super learning, you can download new programs. Are you ready? In minutes. You can take an old life program, and if you can engage super learning, you can install a new program in minutes. And I go, oh, wow, it's called energy psychology. On my website, brucelipton.com, I have over 25 different modalities of energy psychology that people can employ. Identifying a behavior I don't like. Why? Because it's expressing itself. And I go, and I know what I want versus that result, I can reprogram. Okay. And so I say, so what's the relevance? I go, with this new energy psychology, we get empowered to rewrite our lives and change it. Now, you talked about the matrix, and I say, yeah, the matrix is based on the fact that in that video, everybody is pre-programmed. I go, yeah, but that's true. Every one of us is pre-programmed. That's how we went from the first 7 years. We got programmed, okay? But here's the fun part, because I want to connect it to people. And it goes, in the movie, they had something called a red pill and a blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you wake up and you're back in the program and life is always the way it was. But if you take the red pill, you get out of the program. I go, what would be the consequence of taking the red pill? And I go, most everybody in our audience has already taken the red pill with consequences that will blow your mind when you think about it. And I go, when did they take the red pill? And the answer is, science has recognized when you fall in love, head over heels in love, guess what? You stop thinking. If you stop thinking, then the conscious mind maintains its hands on the wheel. And in doing so, the conscious mind, creative mind, his wishes and desires. And I said, when two people meet each other and fall in love, their behavior is no longer coming from subconscious. It is now all conscious wishes and desires. I say, what's the result? I say, it's heaven on earth, the honeymoon effect. People fall in love, and no matter blah, 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 life, they fall in love. And 24 hours later, it's like, oh, life is so beautiful. The food, the music, everything is beautiful. Life is wonderful. I go, well, how'd that happen? Honeymoon. Answer, you stop playing the program. And the moment you stop playing the program, what did you manifest? Heaven on earth. I go, well, how come the honeymoon doesn't stay? And the answer is, how come you have the honeymoon? You stopped thinking and you stayed present. You stayed mindful. I go, but what happens? Well, down the road, you got a job, responsibilities, and things, you start thinking. And I go, then what happens? Well, remember, the honeymoon is 2 conscious minds, creative wishes and desires coming together, manifesting honeymoon, because you're not using the two subconscious minds. The two subconscious minds didn't play with all their negative things that you downloaded from other people. So you were a living honeymoon. But the moment people in that relationship start thinking, then all of a sudden the behavior that shows up is not coming from the wishes and desires mind. It's coming from the subconscious, which is pretty negative. And
So,
all of a sudden, yeah.
we're just about to run out of time.
No, don't run out of time.
No, but here's the thing. I want to say this because, if the antidote is let's go fall in love, and then now I start looking for love, you're an example of that. You fell in love when you stopped looking for love.
Yes, because when you're looking for love, what does it mean consciously? It's not there, and you want to go grab it. And that means, no, you can't go out and grab it. It's running away from you. The idea was this: you have to let go of that, because what is the picture of looking for love? And the answer is, in the mind, I have no love. And I go, oh, well, that's a bad picture, because that's going to generate all kinds of crap behavior at that point. And you're going to say, but I'm going to go find love. And I go, but you're resisting because there's a program that is not supporting you to have that love. And whatever it is, just look at your parents and see how their relation was, because most people will pattern after their parents. And they say, but I didn't like the way their relationship was. And I go, I'm sorry, 95% of your life is coming from that exact program. And you don't see it. I'll close very quickly with, for years, the same story. And I know all those people out there have probably heard it, but I want to say it again. You have a friend. You know your friend's behavior very, very well. And you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the same behavior as their parents. So you say, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And I say, back away from Bill. Bill will inevitably say this: how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. The audience laughs. Why? They all have the experience. I say, most profound story in the world. For what reason? Well, everybody else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. The only one that doesn't see it is Bill. I go, why is that relevant? Because he's playing the program he downloaded from his dad. Why? Because his conscious mind's not paying attention. So whatever behavior is coming out, when you're not paying attention and just playing the program, you do not see it. Bill did not see his own behavior.
Yeah.
Why? It's so automatic. And I go, so what? And the conclusion is simply this: we are all Bill. Every one of us is doing this every day. And if you understand it, you have an option to rewrite program.
So is the beginning then falling in love with ourselves?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I learned this from my own self first, because I could not look in the mirror and say, I love that guy. Because of what? All the critical things that I downloaded as an infant. Not good enough, not smart enough, you don't deserve this, who do you think you are? The things that parents say, which are recorded in a pre-7-year-old's brain as a recording, and then 95% of your life comes from that. So if I get a program not deserving, then 95% of my life will generate behavior to prove, yep, I'm not deserving. Obviously, I didn't get anything, even though I wanted it. And I go, program is being real. And so this is the big issue, is this is why you have to look at your life and identify where the struggles are, because the struggle is not because the outside won't give it to you, it's because the inside won't accept it. And that's where the problems come from.
So in this time of change and chaos, what's your last word on what's your call to action as in this moment of chaos?
My call to action is, look, as a scientist, I learned from the cells this story. And in the very beginning, I said, oh my God, if you understand the nature of subconscious and conscious and programming, you could have the most fantastic life. So I wanted to bring some people together and say, oh, I can tell you how to create the most wonderful life. And I bring them in and I start talking, and then they look at me and they go, you know, Lipton, for a guy who says you know how to do this, your life doesn't look that good. And that's when I realized the conscious mind could have all this knowledge, but if it's not in the program, it doesn't manifest, because the program is what's running 95% of the time. And until I could go and look in that mirror, which ultimately I learned to do, and be able to do as I can now and say, I like that guy. I like that guy. And I say, why is it relevant? Because if you can love yourself, then you can have love. If you do not love yourself, what is the consequence? And the answer is this: you cannot accept love. And I go, why not? Well, your program says I'm not lovable, and somebody says I love you, and I go, well, obviously you have no, quality control, because I know I'm not lovable. So
Yeah.
what will I do is push this person away, and then I'll look around and go, see, I'm not lovable. I said my own behavior unconsciously pushed them away to prove to myself, my own program, I am not lovable.
Beautifully said. So I think our task now is to fall in love with ourselves, and
First,
first and foremost, and then the presence,
thirsty.
being in present of that moment, that so that we're not in the side thinking, we're in the moment of now. And that
Yeah.
brings Kurt
Yes.
and bring us into our closing meditation.
Oh, this is such a great blessing. Thank you so much, Bruce. You came forth with this cleansing of this subconscious kind of stuff. And the way to cleanse it is like, I call it the cosmic Roto-Rooter, or
Yes.
the Drano. And that's basically meditation. And there's something called peacemaker meditation. And it uses a psychosomatic spiritual practice. It's a real simple thing. Just take your hands like as if you're holding a tray, and you're having it face out away from you. And as you breathe in, you sway back, breathing in, and repeat mentally, peace in everything. And as you go forward and breathe out, it's everything with peace. Peace in everything, everything with peace. As we breathe in slowly like this, with these repetition of peace in everything, everything with peace, we get to be able to do that reprogramming. The calming of the breath calms the heart rate. The heart rate calms the brain waves. The mental repetition of one chosen thought, peace in everything, everything with peace, calms the mind, and it calms the heart rate, and the heart rate calms the breathing. So you're sort of burning a candle at both ends. We get into meditation, a calm, peaceful consciousness, and we get to have that program of peace in everything, everything with peace, start to manifest not only more and more inside, but as we bring it outside, everything with peace. And we see it more and more and more as we do that. We act that way. We draw that attention. There was a lot of research on meditation that showed when a small number, like you were talking about, the imaginal cells, did their meditation, that small number in a town dramatically, almost 50% violence, including accidents, stopped. As they said in the 60s, we create the good vibes. Or you can go and grab onto the fear if you want to. And you know how that makes you feel. So we know what we want. We focus on what we want, peace in everything, everything with peace. And we become the blessings that we were put onto this planet to be, healthy cells helping other cells get healthy if they're sick. Thank you so much for being here, Bruce. And everybody watching, there's an after chat. Come to it. We'll have a great dialogue and enjoy this play of consciousness. I love you. Thank you.
Kurt, I just want to add something very important, because I said, how can we reprogram? And I said there were 3 ways. And the second way was a practice of habituation. And that what you're talking about is a practice of habituation of in and out peace. And the repetition of that leads to the habit. So there'll be a point where you don't even have to say it. Your mind will always be working in the subconscious program 95% of the day, doing exactly what you just said, but you have to put it in. And that's why your instruction becomes very important, because that is one of the ways, the repetition process of habituation, that can change any of the filters that we have. So you're really giving us a very important scientific principle of reprogramming.
Yes, yes.
And so,
I've done this for years, since the 80s. We actually created a sound phasing for brain synchronization tape for the 88 Olympics, because it will knock your brain waves into a particular state. And then we used affirmations then. Now we use afformations. They're even better, but we don't have time to get into that. But anybody who wants to come to the after chat. We'll have great discussion then. And Leslie, please give that smile in the closing, and then we'll get ahead to Jim.
I'm so grateful for this dialogue. I mean, I think love is what it takes. And I want to bring Jim in and say, love, 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 Bruce, all of what you've shared with us today. And I mean, I believe that, you know, we are in the matrix, they're looking for the one. Well, each of us are the one. And that's a beautiful instruction to take. Jim.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Kurt, for that beautiful meditation. And Bruce, thank you. Thank you. You're an eminent scientist. You're globally recognized for the integrity of your scientific explorations. And I think if there's one impulse that has come through your remarks today, it's the impulse of empowerment. And I think that you're absolutely correct that the global response to the pandemic has been one of social disempowerment at every single level. Going into isolation, separating ourselves physically from people, wearing masks, being afraid. And there was certain public hygiene reasons for all of that. But I think that the basic thematic that you're striking for all of us today, having now experienced over a year of collective disempowerment, which affects our immune system and affects our sense of well-being, is that the practices that you're recommending, but the basic impulse toward feeling our own inner resources and potential for our own immune response, our own empowerment in the world, is just a beautiful thing for all of us to contemplate. Because in the end, while we don't determine our context and our fate, we can determine our responses to the stimuli that is coming in from the external world, and make the kind of difference that you're recommending in our lives. So your empowerment today, I think, is relevant and intensely timely in an age of COVID, when all of us, I think, in institutional ways, national ways, community ways, and personal ways, are really striving to know what actually to do. And you've given us that meta thematic of empowerment. So I just want to acknowledge that, and acknowledge the very important pioneering contribution that you've made in the realm of science over the last decades. I'll never forget when I read Biology of Belief. It went into my psyche like a bomb, and you turned my life upside down and in and out. And it was really, I think, my first experience in my own human potential from the cellular level on out. So I just want to salute you. You're a very wise man. You're a world treasure, and we're honored that you joined us today. And at hope down the trail we can have you back. So thank you, everyone. And Leslie, Kurt, as usual, thank you. And next month, we'll have another session convened by the Peace Lab. And then tomorrow, everyone, we're going to build on what Bruce has talked about today in terms of empowerment. And we're going to have some people from the Wilderness Foundation in the UK talk about wilderness therapy. Just this reality that just getting out into nature and realizing our oneness with nature also feeds our souls, enhances our immune systems, and animates our sense of empowerment in ourselves and in the larger ecosystem. So that's tomorrow on Humanity Rising. But Bruce, we salute you, we thank you, and we'll see you all again here tomorrow on Humanity Rising. Bye for now.
Adios.